Hello and good evening, everyone, to Ready, Stead, Read, um, our event on the reading day. We're waiting just a couple of more minutes for everyone to join. While people are joining, I'll just lay down a couple of ground rules. Please switch off your mics when someone is talking or while the session is going on. You are most welcome to turn on your video. We would like to see everyone's faces, but please do switch on your mics. Secondly, we are recording this session for our documentation purpose. So I hope I have everyone's consent. Third, we will take all the questions for our discussions at the end. So I request you all to please write down your questions in the chat box because there might be similar questions. So do write your questions. We will take the questions at the end and our speakers will be there to answer you. So we will allow you to also ask your question to the speaker directly. Okay. Right now we will begin. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Ready, Stead, Read. Today, we are gathered here to discuss the value of books and reading and also the impact that they have on our lives. We are hosting this event today to commemorate the National Reading Day, which is observed on 19th June. The day marks the death anniversary of P.N. Panikkar, who is famously known as the father of the library movement in Kerala. He was a teacher based in a small village in Kerala. This is pre-independence. It was called Travancore. He wanted to do more, so he started one library in his hometown. His influence grew, and he began to travel to more villages to proclaim the value of reading. By 1945, he led the formation of the Travancore Library Association with 47 rural libraries. The slogan of the organization was Read and Grow. By 1956, when we had gained independence and the state became Kerala, he had succeeded in bringing some 6,000 libraries into this network. His library network also won the UNESCO award in 1975. It was owing to his contribution, which triggered a sort of a cultural revolution in Kerala, that the state was able to achieve universal literacy in the 1990s. So that story tells you the impact that books and reading can have on our lives, can really change lives. Today, we are very happy to have three panelists with us who are fulfilling three very diverse roles in writing, creating, and building platforms for the young as readers, learners, and citizens. Please allow me to welcome Ms. Paro Anand, an acclaimed children's literature author, storyteller, and activist, Ms. Swati. Ms. Swati Roy, the co-founder of Bookaroo, India's largest children's literature festival, and Prachi Grover, director of the Community Library Project and curriculum coordinator of the Free Libraries Network. Our format of today's event is such that we will have three sessions led by one speaker who will talk about the theme, and we will take questions at the end. We also have a surprise performance by members of the Community Library Project. It's a broadcast performance, but do stay back for that also. So without further ado, let me please invite Ms. Paro Anand to begin our event today. She will be reading a short story, Milk, from her Sahitya Award winning, Bal Puraskar winning book, Like Smoke. Please welcome Paro Anand. Yes.
Hi, thank you so much, Habitat Center, for doing this and for celebrating libraries, reading, and most of all, what's close to our hearts, all three of us, children's literature. So I'm going to read to you a story called Milk, And then I'm going to tell you why this story. Milk. Good news! Good news! Amber shouted, racing up the stairs, his shirt coming untucked, his hair standing straight up, uncombed. Good news! Riots have broken out. Marjani, Ma called, rushing out of the kitchen, wiping the atta off her hands. What nonsense you talk, Amber. No nonsense. It's the truth. Swear, God promise. It's all over town. Riots have broken out, schools are closed, and all the Sikhs have gone into hiding. And you call that good news? Pitaji emerged from his bath. Amber grinned. Oh, school's closed, na? So that's why it's good news. Oh, school's closed again. Ma knew she had a tough day ahead, but she didn't know how tough. School's closed! Hoi, hoi! Yelled Sharan, who was all dressed and ready in his school uniform, starched and oiled. Suddenly, the easy-paced morning had become rushed, everyone rushing around and shouting instead of the usual gentle morning sounds of gurbani and teacups. Amber crept up to Sharan, slung his arm around his brother, and whispered, let's go up to the chat and fly kites. Nobody is going to notice us gone with all this riot business. They ran up the stairs two at a time, only stopping to collect everything they needed to fly their kites. As they prepared the kites for flight, Sharan asked his elder brother, Bhai, what are riots? Riots? Oh, it's when people kill other people and they loot their things, shops, houses, whatever they can find. But why? You won't understand. You're such a baby, snapped Amber. He really didn't know, but he didn't want to admit that to his little brother. Are they robbers? Sharan persisted. He couldn't figure this out at all. He also had a flush of guilt. He remembered money for chocolate, but he didn't think of killing her. Aye, of course not. Why are they killing? Oh, stop asking so many questions. Hand me the chepi. Sharan handed the brown sticky tape to balance the kite. He was puzzled. He knew that people robbed other people so they could get things that they didn't have. But why kill them? Why kill them, bhai? Who? Why are they killing people? Why not take their things if they want it so much? Because they are sick, stupid sardars. So, Amar Praji is sick. He told me so. But we're not killing him. We're not even robbing him of anything. Although he's much, much richer than us. But he's just Pitaji's friend, na? Look, you want to have a political discussion or you want to fly kites? Of course, he wanted to fly kite. He handed it to the kite was now ready. He handed it to his brother and told him to step back and give him a good hoist. He gave the string one final check for snags. Karan moved towards the railing. Of course, he wanted to fly kites and not discuss politics. He was puzzled. Why should school be closed? School didn't close every time there was a... is the khadkhad in my...
I'm also trying to figure out.
Anyway, doesn't matter. Sharan moved towards the railing. Of course, he wanted to fly kites, but he was puzzled. Why were schools closed? Every time a cycle or a car or something was stolen, school didn't close, riots didn't break out. So why now? But he didn't dare ask any more questions. He held the kite ready to hoist. Just then, the sound of running feet distracted him again. He peeked over the railing and was amazed to see Sukhbir Baba, the milkman, was running. They knew him well here. Everyone knew him. They saw him with his big milk can every day. Sharan started to laugh. He couldn't help it. It was a hilarious sight. The slight elderly milkman scurrying with a drum almost as tall as himself. His gait was stiff and awkward, and the milk was dribbling over the lip of the drum. Hey, snapped Amber, pay attention. Sharan, stop looking here and there. But look, bhai, look. Just look what's Sukhbir Baba running from. He'll spill all his milk. Amber joined Sharan to see what the fuss was about. The kite forgotten on the floor. Looking over, Amber shouted, Hey, Sukhbir Baba, daudo, daudo, run for your life. Run as fast as you can. You're winning the race. Everyone else is catching up. Run, run, run. They're catching up. Sharan joined in, and the two brothers were laughing and shouting, Run, Sukhbir Baba, run! They're catching up on you. For sure enough, a huge crowd was running behind the milkman. Some carried sticks, others what could be bricks. Still others struggled along with old tires in their hands. The brothers on the roof were rocking with laughter. It looks like a special race where everyone has to carry something. Hey, let's join in. We'll carry our kite. We're sure to win. Look, there are no children. We'll be the fastest. Through tears of their laughter, they saw Shankar uncle, their neighbor, step out of his house just as Sukhbir Baba was passing. He walked quickly and then, stepping up behind him, he wrapped his arm around the fleeing milkman, bringing him to an abrupt halt. The can of milk teetered on his head for an awful moment, precariously trying to run ahead. Shabash, Shankar uncle, shouted Amber, still giggling. You'd better bring an end to this madness. As they watched, Sukhbir Baba bent over and then fell forwards. Oh! The boys gasped as the milk can fell with him and a river of white flowed, Sukhbir Baba collapsing in the middle of it. Stunned, the rushing crowd stopped in its tracks. Stunned, the boys watched as Shankar uncle stepped away, flicking his foot to shake off the droplets of milk. He folded his shawl over his hands, but Amber managed to catch a glimpse of glinting metal. It was a knife. As his eyes traveled back to the fallen milkman, he saw that the river of milk was turning pink, changing color as it was joined by another river. As pink turned to red, the two little boys knew at last the meaning of the word riot. Amber, whispered Sharan as his brother wrapped him into his arms. I don't like riots. No, whispered Amber into his little brother's ear. You and I, we must promise something. What? We will never let milk go red again. Very nice. From Like Smoke. So why this story? I work a lot with children. I've worked with over 3 lakh children. And they are sort of confronting a lot of things that they should not be confronting, but they are. We talk so much about the world of internet and we fear it. As far as reading is concerned, we really fear it. But we shouldn't. We should understand it. We should understand what's happening with young people when they're getting this overload of information, which is not meant for children. And through the safety net of story, put that into a safe story where you can talk about something that is as difficult as rioting. And what I do in writing, because of the feedback that I've always got from young people, is that they need to talk about serious issues, even very young children, but they also need a sort of moment of hope and uplifting. It doesn't have to be a happy story tied up in pink bows, happily ever after, no. But certainly, I like to empower young people to say, you are a human being, you are a person. No matter how young you are, you can make a change. And so a lot of my books, I've just got a few of them. This is Being Gandhi, which is, yes, it was written to celebrate 150 years of Gandhi, but it's not set in the freedom struggle. It's not about Gandhi the man. It's about inspiring children to find a better person inside them. This is a book called The Other, which is how we otherize people. It's a collection of short stories on different ways in which we push people away or we make somebody feel different. And some of the stories in this deal with domestic violence. Some of them deal with sexual assault, disability. These are subjects that always have come from children. I think even when I did a session with the Community Library Project or with several of the Bookaroos, I always ask, what is a story that you want me to write? What is a story that you haven't found yet? And the kind of subjects that they talk about are sometimes astonishing, that this is what their demand is. They don't want cutesy stories anymore. And I'm very happy to say that children's literature is being very brave and coming out with brilliant stories. I'm actually currently on a jury, and I'm amazed at the stories coming out, at the books being published for young people. And I'm sure that that is the key to getting children to read, is to give them subjects that they want to read.
Thank you so much, Paroji, for that really moving story. And we could not have had a better entry point into this event, because there is the common concern, which you, I think, have addressed even without us mentioning, which is that how do you get children to read in the age of internet? And it's actually, great to know that the way is to treat children as as an equal, and
with
not
respect,
children, with idioms that you have to cutesify, like you said. And it's actually very reassuring to know that the kids are all right, sort of a thing, that these stories are coming from them and they are the ones asking for harsher truths. Our children are much more intelligent than we give them credit for. That's beautiful. And if you would like to share some links to anything, do please put on our chat box for our audience readers. I think they would like to know more about your books as well. We'll move on to our next.
I do have a podcast I will just
Perfect.
put that.
Yes, yes, yes. Do share it with us also. I'll connect with you about it later on. Okay, so we will move on to our next session with Miss Swati Roy. And now that we've had the creator, the book writer, talk about what is it that we are writing, what is it that we are reading, what is it the children are asking for, the next step is to understand how do we get those books to the children. So if it is young adults or if it is children, usually it is the parents who act as agents in one sense. Sometimes it's the school curriculum, sometimes it's other things. Miss Swati Roy, as I said, is the co-founder of Bookaroo. Bookaroo has been successfully running for 14 years. It's done 40 editions. It's traveled to 15 cities. So I'd like to begin to ask you if you could just paint a picture of the kind of programming that you do for a children's festival for 15 cities. There are big cities you go to, there are smaller cities you go to. You had also told us earlier that you've just returned from a festival in Srinagar. So if you could just take us through how do we do, how do we diversify for these cities? What are children reading nowadays? Over to you, Ms. Swati.
Well, thank you so much, Kanika, and thank you, Habitat Center, for organizing this and to bring three different people who are again connected through children's literature. So that's fantastic. But we are all working in little different kind of arenas. Of course, Paro and I kind of share a common thing because we are just the facilitators or the carriers of the great work that authors and illustrators and storytellers are doing. And to that extent, our role is to be the, like I said, the carriers of this information, the wonderful work. You did mention different cities, but the fact of the matter is that, the hunger or the thirst for stories, the thirst for meeting the creators of books is actually universal. It isn't as if, a child from a smaller city is any different. But yes, sometimes, which you will all agree because we are sitting in Delhi and having this program, at least the three of us, that in the bigger cities, tier one cities, if I may use the word, there is a certain amount of saturation. There is a sense of, not been there, done that, but they have various avenues through which they are able to, access books and access stories. And there is more awareness amongst the people, among parents, among guardians, among teachers. So to that extent, yes, the excitement that we feel when we go to a tier 2 or a tier 3 city is something that is worth all the extra effort that we have to do to go to another city. It just, yes, Frederick is good to come back to Goa, but what to do? We are also bound by, financial constraints. I mean, I wish we had supporters everywhere. The books are there, the authors are there, the wonderful work is there. We just put everything together and go as a, as a bunch of people to spread the awareness and, spread the joy of reading. That's what we want to do. Yeah, so coming back to the cities that we've been to, Kanika, while you're right, but you can add +1 to all of that. So we have finished 41 editions now with Srinagar. We've been to 16 cities. One, of course, is international. So we've been to Malaysia 3 times. And the festival itself actually started as a kind of a little idea that, was germinated in a bookstore that we have, a children's bookstore in Delhi. And initially it was a loose collective of people from the publishing world, other authors, storytellers who got together, and we thought that we should have something like this. And boy, did we have something. I mean, Paro will know because she's been there since edition 1. It was the effect of having that first festival and the effect of seeing what we had created, and the acceptance levels just spurred us on to keep doing what we were doing. And it was kind of course, there were a lot of children from Eureka, the bookstore that we run. We still run it. It's in the 20th year this year. A lot of children came from there, but a festival has a much wider impact, a wider audience. And the objective with which we started, which was to make books come alive through interactions with the authors, I think we got that bang on, because the people who write children's books and they're able to, reach the children or the audience that they want to, who they're writing for, that interaction is magical. So if it is a story, as what Paro just now said, for a certain age group. Of course, our programs are age-wise. I mean, age-wise in the sense that we have 2-year age band. So we start with 4 to 6, 6 to 8, 8 to 10, 10 to 12, 12 to 14, and so on. So the programming is done in that manner. Therefore, this particular story would perhaps be in the 10 to 12 age category. In a way, I'm saying, just so that you know that there are some fun stories and stories around maybe a little bit of rhyming, a little bit of action, which again Paro has done through her, other books. So I'm just taking Paro as an example to say there's a diverse range of books. And we try to create a connection between the author and the child in a manner that, at that moment there is that whole, that magic of, the author meeting the child and then both of them reading the book together. And of course, the author gets a first-hand, feedback of what the book is doing to the child and maybe, get some ideas for the next book. So having said that, that was the origin of Bookaroo and that's how we planned it. Now, when we went to the other cities, in fact, Srinagar was the first city that we went out to in the year 2011, we realized that there weren't those books available in the city. There were very few and far between interactions like that between the children and, creators of the books. So it's not as if we did some special programming. It was just about, bringing the whole flock together, and bringing, a kind of a bouquet of, sessions for the children. Of course, we learned as we went along, what works well in some cities. We also have this, kind of an internal policy that we do 10% of the programming in the local language and bring in speakers from the, city or the state that we are in. So that apart, I think it's just I will give you an anecdote. For example, in Pune, when we did the first time in 2015, one of the parents came up to us and said that, I know you're doing it free just now. By the way, Bookaroo is free, free, no entrance fee. And it's kind of inclusive and we try and take in as many people as possible, except where the sessions are kind of limited number sessions. So one parent came up and said, I know you're doing this as a sampling for the first year. Next year, you're going to start charging, which was not the case. I mean, in smaller cities, they kind of, I won't say Pune is a smaller city, but I'm just saying that in a city that is not a metropolitan, not the 8 tier 1 cities, they have a tendency of thinking that, okay, so eventually there's going to be a catch in this and, there's going to be a price attached to it because that's the way, maybe events are held or whatever be the cause, whatever be the, effect that they have had before. On the other hand, for example, in Srinagar, this time I had a volunteer who's 16 years old and he recalled that he was an attendee in 2013 and he had a fabulous experience of attending it and felt very proud that suddenly he was part of the team that was doing the, back-end work and he had some memories of some of the sessions and I said, listen, I don't have time just now, we have to do a lot of work, so we'll talk about it later on, which we did, of course, later on after hours. But I think the amount of engagement and excitement that we have seen in the other cities apart from the Bangalore, Bombay and Delhi has been something else, and it has really made us feel that we should be going to more cities and doing spreading it wider. I'm thinking of another example, in Baroda, for instance, when we've done the festival twice in Baroda, and we've had people come from Surat and other cities saying that, I know you're not going to come to Surat. And that is not because we don't want to come to Surat. Like I just told Frederick, that we are subject to, the support and funding and all of that to go to other smaller cities and kind of, take it forward there. But so that is the pan-India kind of experience that I wanted to kind of share with you. As far as the festival itself is concerned, the parents as agents, which you said, one of the objectives of having a festival like this where everybody is welcome is also to give ideas to parents about what is going on in the world of children's literature. Paro might be witness to it that a lot of parents come and say, what should my child be reading? So instead of being prescriptive, it, if they see the book in action, if they see the authors in action and what's going on and how your child's eyes are kind of shining every time something interesting is happening, I think the parents get a clear idea, not just parents, even teachers. And the way the authors or the craft people, sometimes we also believe that in Bookaroo that not all children like to read, they don't want to get instantly into a reading session. They might want to do it through, let's say, an activity or art. So there, I think somewhere we are also giving ideas to teachers or to, resource people in schools to kind of pick up points, how a book can be made alive through these kind of activities. And They have worked very well. We have received feedback, positive feedback about, oh, I never realized that a book could have, this aspect to it also. Then of course, how these books can be added as a support to your curriculum itself. So many nice books. Bijal, for instance, is doing fantastic work in creating awareness about the environment. Those kind of books are becoming part of the reading list as a support to the academic curriculum that is happening in schools, and therefore parents get an idea that it's not always about going to school and going through a course, going through an academic session. And there is this whole universe of extracurricular books, if I may use the word, which can create so much excitement around the subject. And that goes for history, that goes for environment, that goes for space. So we've been sort of sowing these seeds of imagination, of ideas through the festival wherever we've sort of gone. Not just us, I mean, in conjunction with the creators of the books. So I just sort of feel that at the end of it all, some of the key takeaways from our festival has been that don't restrict your child to a particular age. Don't just kind of say that, oh no, this book is right. Of course, I'm not talking about the mature subjects which younger children may not it may not be the right time to start on them. But a lot of times older children want to read picture books. I mean, we should not be judgmental about that. We should just kind of, because after going through the various cities that we have been to, we see that the hunger, the amazing curiosity about various subjects which they may not have seen before Bookaroo, So then they're seeing the wide range of books being available in the festival bookstore, and children are picking up, parents are picking up, because one of the feedback is that we didn't know this book existed, or we didn't know that this wide range. And year on year, the sales from the various cities show us that there is a huge what should I say, a huge possibility, the potential. And this is something, and even librarians for that matter, when they come to the festival bookstore, and then, we only stock the participating authors' books. So we don't really take the whole range of children's books. Within that, the excitement, the inquisitiveness, okay, so which are the other books, what else can I take? So this has been the role of Bookaroo in a way, in a very limited way. I mean, 16 cities is nothing compared to the number of cities we have in India. But the little bit of, like drop in the ocean that we've been able to do through this, I can only share these, personal experiences that, we've just been trying to make reading an enjoyable activity, an activity that, entails some kind of, so when parents are coming and then, we just hear the feedback maybe the next year and the year after, especially in Delhi. Sometimes a grandfather would come and say, the reason I bring him to Bookaroo every year is that he should remember, this should be a memorable experience. It should be a memory that he will treasure when he grows up, and possibly he should take his own child or his grandchild to such festivals if they are there, So this kind of a thing just gladdens your heart, of course. And I'm sure it has a deeper impact in the reading and growing up years of a child. So yeah, that's about it. Yeah. Anything else, Kanika? That's my bit.
You really you've summed up the whole thing, and I think I just remembered. It's so strange. I have volunteered for Bookaroo when I was in college. Now I remember after. It's so strange because you said, I remember now, and in fact, the session that I attended, like you rightly said, was not on books at all. And I think it was some music, and so I was volunteering for a couple of sessions during the day, and I think one was on music, one was like a magic show or something. But I remember I had such a fun day.
My God.
When I was in college, and and I was really amazed, and I said, if I were a child and so many fun things were happening around for me, then I would have loved it.
Exactly,
So that's
exactly.
my experience. Yeah. If our discussants want to add something, Paroji or Prachi.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I've seen from the beginning of Bookaroo how parenting is also learning so much, What I mean by that is that the first few Bookaroos, or when you're in a new city, the parents, the school groups who are coming don't really know how to negotiate that space and are just sort of running from one event to the other. But in Delhi, I've seen parents come with notebooks and write down which child wants to do which session at what time. And I think that's been a great learning for parents as well. And also this very important aspect that it doesn't have to be strictly age group wise. Let them explore the world out there. After all, look, again, going back to the internet, they're exploring the internet. So now there's no, on TV, they're watching a lot, which is not specifically 8 to 10, 10 to 12, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So let them explore if it's something that is not within their understanding. They themselves will not come forward or will drop that book. And I think part of the reason why parents want to do this tight age grouping or teachers is because they're a bit scared of the questions that will follow. And this is my theory that parents are a bit scared, because I used to sometimes feel scared of what questions will follow when my own kids were reading something.
Paro, do you recall that incident in one of the Bookaroos where you had done no guns at my son's funeral, and somebody came up and said, do you have a memory of that one? No, in Sanskriti?
What did they say?
So they were the same question, that this was not meant for this age group.
It was not
and
meant
I think
for
you said it very, 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 you put it very aptly and explained, why that, this is, this, because obviously, the protagonist was, who he
and
was.
Also, Swati, what I found over the years is that children never find something which is not appropriate. Yes. Children will never say this was not appropriate for me.
Yeah.
It's parents who say it. And I think it's because they're scared of the questions and how they'll deal with it.
They don't have the answer, so they worry about it.
We don't have the answer.
Yeah, absolutely.
And sometimes it's okay to say, no, I don't know.
No, yeah, that's right.
But it's a big admission for a teacher or a parent to say, I don't have the answer.
Yeah.
Right. So, Swati ji has actually given us a lot to think about, a lot of themes. I think the whole idea about creating interaction for kids that propels them towards learning, not just, in a way drive them towards one kind of thing and only read this and only read the curriculum, and all of that is, I think, what is changing habits and kind of really fostering taste for young adults. We'll move on to our next session with this lead. Prachi Grover, as I said, she works with the Community Library Project, and which is, as we all know, it is taking the public library system forward, yes. But it is also part of a collective called the Free Library Networks, which makes books accessible towards a lot of institutes and places, and it also performs the resource sharing work, if I'm right. So what is the most interesting thing, and I think the most crucial thing about the community project to us, is just this theme that Ms. Swati mentioned, is about not being prescriptive. It sort of seems to be this environment that empowers leadership, also. And also the second part that she mentioned is that it localizes, like not just local literature, but it also localizes knowledge in a way. So there is also reading, but there's also a certain kind of education of what's happening around us, to the readers. So Prachi, I would just give this over to you. If you could tell us a little bit about the community library's work, and how it kind of does this empowering of choice over instruction for young readers. What is the age group of readers there, etc.?
Thanks, Kanika. So excited to be here. I think I'll before answering the exact question of what happens at TCLP at the TCLP libraries, I think I'll begin with why why is there a need to talk about, you know, creating access to books through libraries? And why do we need to talk about um, the struggle with, you know, children not reading books? And I'll actually begin with a question to everyone. How many of you have heard or said the statement that children don't like to read anymore? Give me a thumbs up if you. Yeah. I already see Paraji raising her hand. And I see more and more thumbs up and hand raised in Zoom. And I'm here to tell you that that statement is a lie. Uh, and I have proof here. So I'm going to share my screen to show proof that actually children do like to read. Just give me a second. I'll show you some pictures from our libraries. All right. So here you can see some pictures from our libraries where, you know, we have 3 libraries in Delhi NCR, and we have more than 9,000 members in these libraries. And here in these libraries, you can find 4-year-olds reading books, and you can find, just a second, I'm not sure if my shared screen is visible to all of you. Is it?
Yes.
Visible.
So here you can see 4-year-olds reading books, and you can see 15-year-olds reading books, and you can see 30-year-olds reading books, and you can see 50-year-olds reading books. So basically, in these libraries, everyone's reading books, and they are browsing books on shelves. And these shelves are open shelves. You don't see any doors in front of them. No books, no shelves being covered. You see children and adults reading to themselves and reading to their friends. Here I see a librarian reading aloud to some women in a park who work in that park. And I also see this very unusual group, I would say. This is not a group you would see normally in other public settings, where you see 3 people sitting, one senior citizen, one a teenager, and then there's another woman who's sitting and probably doing her homework. And yeah, so these pictures are all from the TCLP libraries, and this is a very usual scene there. This is something that happens on an everyday basis, and I can tell you that they are not reading because we asked them to post for a picture, nor are they reading because they have an exam to write after reading the book. They're reading because they enjoy reading. So where does this lie come from, you know, that people don't like to read anymore? And I think it comes from one truth, and that is that people are actually not reading. And the reason they're not reading, I'll say there are 2 reasons that they're not reading. One, that there aren't enough libraries for people to access books from. And here I have some stats also to share with you. So there is this foundation called the Raja Ram Mohan Roy Library Foundation, which is a nodal agency for public library system in India. And according to their data, there are more than 46,000 libraries in the country. And this data is contested by different figures from the Ministry of Culture, from the National Census and other surveys. So basically, we don't even know how many libraries the country has. And however many these libraries are, they're serving more than 141 crore people in the country. Now, even if, let's say, 50,000 is the correct number of libraries we have in the country, there is no clarity. How do we understand these libraries? Like, what do we mean by library? How many books do they have? How many people are they serving? Are they free libraries, or are they charging membership fees? And who are the people that they're serving? When we don't have this clarity, it's hard to say how many libraries do we actually have. On top of that, we do not have any kind of national policy that could give a direction to what a library should be like, that conceptualizes libraries. But we do have 20 legislations in 20 different states in the country. But the sad part here is that these legislations conceptualize libraries as paid institutions, which are meant to cater to students and to people aspiring for jobs, because they come and sit in the library and study to prepare for exams. So where does that leave all the children, the women, people with disability, people who can't read, people who come from oppressed castes? people who don't identify with the binary gender identities, where do they go? Because they don't just need silent libraries to sit and study. They need vibrant spaces where they can interact with people, where they can feel safe, where they can feel welcome, and where they can easily access books and literature. So we don't have those libraries. The second reason why this lie is going around that people don't like to read is because reading is a social cultural activity, and that social cultural activity has a very long history, and that history is of exclusion. It's an exclusion based on gender, it's an exclusion based on caste, on region, religion, language, and the truth is that this exclusion has continued to present day. And this exclusion impacts our present and it impacts our future. And I am also going to quote two studies to talk about how this is impacting. Now, this is a study from 2018 conducted in Bangalore, which talks about how, like, it basically points towards the segregation of living spaces in urban settlements based on caste, and how these segregated settlements also have unequal distribution of public amenities. Another study which was conducted very recently in 2022, it studied some schools, some government schools in Karnataka, and it found out that the schools that are supposed to function as secular schools often imagine the child as predominantly Hindu, and this is all evident from curricular as well as non-curricular practices in the school. So what actually happens is that the burden of inclusion falls on the non-Hindu minority children. They have to conform to these practices, to these ideas, to prove themselves being included in that system. And often they end up struggling with their own identity development. So now when this scenario exists, what do we do? What's the response to that? Well, we have been working in library spaces for a long time, and we see that free libraries do work. And Kanika, you mentioned the Free Libraries Network, which is basically a network of more than 150 library organizations from all over the country. And they also run free community libraries. And they also prove every single day that free libraries work, because when there are free libraries, everyone comes to read. But that reading doesn't just happen automatically. It's not that, a library is created, books are kept, and everyone will just start reading. We saw in our own libraries that this reading happened after, this reading happened after a lot of work was done to ensure that we create spaces which are very welcoming. And here I'll actually show you another image. Just a second. Okay, so here this is an image of our All Are Welcome policy, and this basically states that everyone is welcome in the library, regardless of their caste, their class, religion, gender, sexual identity, or disability, and that any kind of discriminatory behavior on any ground is unacceptable, and we together basically create safe spaces for everyone. So the idea is that when we talk about creating safe and welcoming spaces, it happens only when we collectively work to make that happen. And it happens when we loudly proclaim that, yes, we are a safe and welcoming space. And we do it by policies like our All Are Welcome policy, but we also do it through other practices. The open shelves that you saw in the picture are a way of welcoming people. They're a means to say that, we want you to come in, we want you to touch these books, feel these books. Even if you're not reading, just look at the pictures, enjoy these books. We also do through a very thoughtful collection of books. We don't just, let's say we get a lot of books in donation, but any book that we get in donation doesn't just automatically go on the shelf, because we first have to ensure that the book is in good condition, as good a condition that I would want to read in, and that they are the books that our members want to read. So let's say if we are located in Delhi, and if our entire collection or 80% of our collection is in English, when we know that most of our library members read, interact, and think in Hindi, then the English books are not going to be read. So we need books in Hindi, but we also need books in English because these members want to learn to read in English. Some of them already read in English. And we also have members who read in Bangla, who read in Urdu, who read in Uriya, who read in Dari and Pashto. So we need those books in the library too. So it's constantly interacting with the community. It's constantly understanding their needs and bringing in what they need. And that can only happen when we build relationships where it's not about five librarians running a library, but it's about the community running the library together, be it by collectively taking care of the library space or by holding the librarians accountable. It happens with me if any time I'm 5 minutes late to the library, or if I promised a child that I'm going to read the aloud story to them and I'm not there at the assigned time, then they would come up and say, "Aapne mujhe kahani sunani thi and you're not here yet." And all this happens after years of work on building relationships, on years of ensuring that these books and the idea of reading and thinking is accessible to everyone because reading is everyone's right. So we do that through policy intervention, policies like our All Are Welcome policy, the child safety policy. We do that through practices like there will be a librarian standing at the gate to welcome the members in the library, or that circulation will be free, that nobody will be charged when they want to issue a book, or maybe when they lose a book, there's not going to be a fine, there's not going to be a membership security deposit, and the admission process has to be easy. It also happens through a very robust and thoughtful and community-oriented curriculum. Now, what do I mean by a library curriculum? It's not like a typical school curriculum where you would have a list of topics to study, but it's a curriculum which comes from the understanding that we all live in a place which has been historically segregated on many, many grounds. And to address that, we need to say it out loud that we are a space that welcomes all and is safe for all, but also provide programs that help people engage with books with confidence, without any kind of fear. So that means what Paraji did at the beginning of the session, we do that every day, because I think everyone was so engaged when Paramam, you were reading that story. I think everyone was just hooked onto the story. And that happens with people of all ages. I mean, here we are all adults sitting and listening to that story. And it works just as wonderfully with children. So every day, maybe 5 times a day, 10 times a day, 7 days a week, we are reading aloud. We are reading aloud from books, and we are discussing about those books. We are collectively making meaning of that book, adding our own stories and voices to that book, to the point that nowadays, I think if 5 librarians are doing a read aloud in a day, then there are 20 members who are doing read aloud inside the library and outside when they go back home and read aloud to their parents. So that's what happens when, children get access to books and the choice is free, when nobody tells them that, you can touch this shelf, but oh no, not that shelf, that's only for adults, Or we tell an adult that no, these are only for children, so don't read picture books. When they have free choice, those books go out, and that book, when circulated by a child, actually goes into hand of 10 more people, because on the way that child is bound to stop on the way to read aloud to a friend, then go home and tell the story to the parents, to the siblings, and maybe 1 or 2 cousins who live in the neighborhood. So all of this, like this kind of a curriculum, which provides adult literacy program to adults, that provides reading fluency programs to children who are struggling to read, or that provides reading circle to teenagers who want to explore their identity through stories, or explore the meaning of the world through stories, or it is through programs like, doing book reports, using writing as a tool to understand, to explore literature, to think about literature. Now, these kind of curriculums do work. We see that happening in all 3 of our libraries, and we see that happening in the 150 plus community libraries that are part of the network. But this will remain very constricted into these, individual libraries and not become part of a larger discourse unless and until we actually push to make it a part of the larger discourse. So what we also need in, addition to libraries adopting these practices is for some kind of a policy intervention, legislations that make it the responsibility of the government to have public libraries all over the country. It through RTE it became possible that there is a school in every 1 kilometer radius for all children to be going to school, to be enrolled in school. I think it's very much possible to have one library in every kilometer radius so that every child, every adult has the opportunity to just, on their way back home from school or from work, can just drop by, maybe hear a story, issue a book, and go back home. So what we, I think as a network, are pushing for is um, a curriculum that helps make libraries accessible for all and encourages reading with thinking. And we are pushing for policies and legislations, meaningful and functional policies and legislation that help establish a free, inclusive, all welcoming public library system in the country. Um, so yeah, I'll stop talking here, and yeah, I will invite others to add if they would like to add something.
Very early on, I was working in the National Center for Children's Literature, and I worked on a project of setting up libraries in rural Rajasthan and rural Maharashtra. And the thirst for books and the way just seeing books strung up on strings, because there were no classroom, no school building. So we would hang them on strings. The way children who had dropped out of school came back and then started to learn because they wanted to read those books. We had kids stealing books because they couldn't afford. We had one night as our bus was leaving, there was a woman racing behind us, banging on the back of the bus, saying, "Roko, roko, roko." And she had a book in her hand, and she said, my child stole money from the home to buy this book. And it was 10 rupees, 12 rupees. These were NBT books. And so she said, give me the money back. So we let her take the book and gave her the money back. But that thirst for books was enormous, and exactly what Swati was saying is of the saturation in tier one, because there's always a feeling if we miss this time, there'll be another time. Whereas in smaller cities, in villages, there's never going to be another opportunity like this. So people would come from miles around, walking all day to come, and we had some people coming. Literally, they were dressed in leaves, sort of emerging out of the forest, carrying honey, forest honey, and saying that, we don't have money, we don't deal in money, so you take honey and give us some for our children.
No, I want to add over here, absolutely right, Paro. What Prachi said about the libraries every kilometer, it's not just for the children of the underprivileged backgrounds, even for regular, what should I say regular, when I mean people who can't even afford books. The idea of books should be, as much access as possible for everybody. It shouldn't be a privilege that, as somebody's reading a book. It should be a normal thing. It should, again, not be a chore either. That, oh, I have to sit with my child to read. You should be reading as much as the child. The child should pick up from the fact that books are lying all around and, just pick up a book and read when you're free. This whole thing, sometimes I see people just kind of assuage or, kind of keep the child quiet, you give them a screen and say, okay, at least for some time she'll be quiet. what are we doing? I mean, the child wasn't born with that device, right? So we have to figure these kind of things out and not make, again, a reverse kind of thing saying that, books are very exclusive. Books should be just part of our lives, like much like, and we haven't turned out too bad either, having read books all the time and sometimes hiding and reading books, even when exams were on and stuff like that. So I just feel that there's too much of thinking about books as a special thing. It should just continue the trend that we grew up as, and parents will have that, a memory of growing up with books. Just continue the thing. It's not, yeah, of course, when we go to smaller cities and all. I remember Paro in the early days, and this is Delhi. It's not even another smaller city that, so we had a concept called Bookaroo in the city, where authors would be going into schools, and mostly schools which were underserved, which didn't have so many events, etc. So they would go for a week before the event into the school, do a session, and then essentially also tell the school that, this is going to happen this next weekend, so come there. And possibly the author and the volunteer, probably Kanika, you were one of the volunteers, would also leave a little note saying that 11 o'clock on such and such day, it will be held at Sanskriti Anandgram. And would you believe it? We are setting up in the middle of the night, 10:30 at night, one two-wheeler comes, family, of a, father, mother, and two children at night. And I'm, kind of in the middle of this. Sorry, no, उन्होंने बोला स्कूल में शाम को 10:30. So I said, नहीं हो सकता, नहीं, हमारे पास कहाँ है? So they had reached at night thinking it was a night program or something. That just
11 o'clock at
and
night.
it's Delhi, it's not, we're not talking about, like we did one in Falna, in Bali, in Rajasthan, where, well, they don't know, but here, imagine the excitement. And we said, okay, just like you said, the children are fine. I said, all right, this is okay. We've chosen the right thing to do, and just that. And obviously, some author must have gone to the school and created that kind of excitement that the child got convinced and told his father to come on his two-wheeler in the middle of the, 10:30 is late on a Gurgaon Sanskriti Anandgram road. So I just wanted to share that. So, Prachi, you're absolutely right that it should be just all over the place, and the policy intervention is much needed now. Yeah.
My question to those who say children don't read anymore is, how much are you reading? Mostly parents are reading. The kids are reading, but parents are not.
Thank you so much, Prachi, for that really, really, informative for all of us session about the work that community library is doing for. And it's remarkable the way that you have actually outlined step by step you've identified every obstacle, and you've also found a way to make access really broad in every, in sort of every sense, that kind of whole bridging of the cycle that community library is doing, that is really commendable. And the fact about open shelves, I think something so small can really, mean so big and do so much. Something for all of us to take back for sure. And kudos to Community Library Network. Now we will move to the exciting part of the evening. And I would like to mention Dastak, our rap duo, consisting of Dean Swag and Kranti K. The duo was founded in 2020, and I will leave it over to them to introduce themselves and the performance. Please welcome Dastak. I will unmute you. Sorry. Please go again.
Hello everyone.
Hello.
Yes, sir. So this is Shivam, as known as Krantike.
This is Shivek, as known as Team Swag.
And together we are Dastak.
और मैं आपको बताना चाहता हूँ कि हमारा एज एक्सपीरियंस कैसा रहा है लाइब्रेरी में। तो शुरू में जब हम लाइब्रेरी गए थे, हम एज अ मेंबर गए थे लाइब्रेरी के अंदर, क्योंकि हमारे बहुत सारे जो दोस्त थे और हमारे आस पड़ोस के जो बच्चे थे वो लाइब्रेरी जा रहे थे, और हमें पता चला था कि वहाँ पे एक लाइब्रेरी खुली है, फ्री है। तो हम जब लाइब्रेरी में गए तो हमने देखा कि वहाँ पे बहुत सारे प्रोग्राम्स वगैरह चालू हुए हैं, जैसे कि रीड अलाउड्स वगैरह, उसमें हम बैठना चालू हुए। हमें किताबें पढ़ना बहुत अच्छा लगता था हमें। तो हमने देखा कि कहानियां सुनाते हैं, तो बहुत अच्छा लगता था हमें कहानी सुनना, और साथ में फिर उसके बाद कहानी के ऊपर हम सोचते थे। फिर धीरे धीरे जब लाइब्रेरी इवॉल्व होने लगी तो फिर उसमें हमने देखा कि बहुत सारे वर्कशॉप होने लगे। तो हमने एक वर्कशॉप ज्वाइन करा जिसका नाम था पोएट्री वर्कशॉप था वो। तो पोइट्री वर्कशॉप में हमने थोड़ी राइटिंग वगैरह करी, पोइट्री लिखी। तो हमें बचपन से हमारा शौक था ना थोड़ा रैप म्यूजिक सुनने का। तो हमने तो पोइट्री तो लिख दी, पर हम उसको गा थोड़े रैप टाइप में रहते, तो हमने सोचा ना हमें कुछ करना चाहिए क्योंकि हम थोड़ा लिख पा रहे हैं इस चीज को। तो हमने रैप म्यूजिक करना चालू करा, और जब हमने रैप म्यूजिक के उसकी हिस्ट्री को जब जाना तो हमें पता चला कि रैप म्यूजिक है, हिप हॉप है, उसका हिस्ट्री भी एक मूवमेंट की तरह चलता हुआ है। और हमने जब लाइब्रेरी के काम को देखा तो वो भी एक मूवमेंट की तरह चल रहा है जो फ्री लाइब्रेरी है। तो हमने इसको बहुत कनेक्ट कर पाया इस चीज को, और हमने फिर सोचा कि चलो हम जो हिप हॉप है हम अपने साइड से हिप हॉप करते हैं और इसको एक मूवमेंट की तरह लेके चलते हैं, और अपने जो कम्युनिटी के लोग हैं और कम्युनिटीज है उनको थोड़ा इन्फॉर्मेशन देते हैं, रियल इन्फॉर्मेशन जो हमारे आसपास हो रही है, और जो चीजें हमें अच्छी नहीं लग रही है, जो चीजें बहुत सारी ऐसी चीजें होती हैं। तो हमने अपने रैप म्यूजिक में वो चीज लिखना चालू करता, तो हमने वहीं से चालू करा रैप म्यूजिक करना।
हाँ, तो हम शुरू करें तो 2014 के वक्त जब हमारी लाइब्रेरी खुली थी, तो हम लाइब्रेरी के उसी वक्त से मेंबर हैं। तो हमारा लाइब्रेरी में मतलब बहुत ज्यादा योगदान रहा, और लाइब्रेरी से हमने बहुत सीखा है। तो मैं जैसे आपको बताऊं तो हमारा म्यूजिक में इंटरेस्ट बहुत पहले से था, पर हमें ऐसे कोई मुकाम चाहिए था जहां हम उसको और पुश मिल सके, जहां से हमें उसे पुश मिल सके। तो जो ये हमारा गाना है उसमें मैंने ये भी लिखा है कि मुझे एक मुकाम चाहिए था लिखने के लिए, और वो मुकाम TCLP था। वहां पे हम गए, वहां पे हमने TCLP से तो हमारा बहुत पहले से जुड़ना था, पर जब हम वहां पे गए हमने वहां देखा कि वो TCLP क्या है, क्यों चलती है, वो लाइब्रेरी किसके लिए है, वो लाइब्रेरी हमारे लिए, ये कम्युनिटी ओनरशिप के ऊपर बात करती है। तब हमें जाके ये चीज पता चला। और होता है ना कि अगर आप जहाँ पे रह रहे हैं वहां पे आप इवॉल्व कर जाते हैं। तो हम लाइब्रेरी में इतना रह चुके थे कि हम जब रैप लिखने लगे थे लाइब्रेरी के ऊपर, जो लाइब्रेरी का एंथम था, तो हमें टाइम ही नहीं लगा लिखने में। शिवेक ने जो अपना बुक लिखा वो शिवेक ने 10-15 मिनट के अंदर अंदर लिख लिया, क्योंकि हम इतना वाकिफ थे लाइब्रेरी से कि हमें पता था कि लाइब्रेरी में चलता क्या है, लाइब्रेरी में क्या हो रहा है, कितनी किताबें हैं, कैसा माहौल है। और हम कनेक्ट कर पा रहे हैं लोगों से, कि हम लाइब्रेरी के थ्रू लोगों से और कनेक्ट कर पा रहे हैं, उनको लाइब्रेरी के बारे में बता पा रहे हैं, सबको ये इन्फॉर्मेशन दे रहे हैं कि फ्री लाइब्रेरीज क्या होती है और सबको फ्री लाइब्रेरीज के अंदर आना चाहिए। तो जो ये हमारा गाना था ये हमने 2020 के करीब जब हम डुओ रैप बैंड बने तब हमने ये गाना रिलीज किया था अपना। और फिर हमने ये पूरा गाना, एक ट्रिब्यूट टू TCLP से है ये गाना, तो ये पूरा गाना TCLP के नाम पे है।
मैंने रिकॉर्ड भी TCLP के अंदर ही करा था, लिखा भी उसी बिल्कुल लोगों के बीच में माहौल में, मतलब रीडिंग रूम में बैठकर हम सबके सामने ऐसे लिख रहे थे।
ऐसा कुछ नहीं था कि प्रोफेशनल गाना बना है, बिल्कुल हमने इसको ओरिजिनल रखा कि जो आप लाइब्रेरी में डे टू डे जो भी हसलिंग चल रही है, जो भी बजिंग है लाइब्रेरी में वही। तो हमने ऐसा भी नहीं कोई प्रोफेशनल शूट किया, और जो उसका वीडियो शूट हुआ वो हमने पूरी लाइब्रेरी के अंदर शूट किया। साथ में जो हमने जितने भी हमारे मेंबर्स थे हमने उनको इंक्लूड किया और उनके साथ वाइब किया है पूरे गाने। तो ये मतलब हमारा वो था कि हमने कम्युनिटी ओनरशिप दिखाई अपनी लाइब्रेरी के साथ, और वो गाना आज तक हिट है सबके लिए।
गाना समझो।
Okay, so I will play the YouTube link of the rap now, and I will also share it in comments for everyone to अपने घर पे सुनने के लिए। Okay, let's start. Is my screen visible?
Yes, yes. I think you'll have to share the audio to connect us. Thank you.
One second, so sorry. Radio settings. Okay.
किसी के बात पे न आना दुनिया झूलती है, बजने दो बजता तो ढोल भी है। एक राज जो यहाँ पे सदियों से छिपाता, लाइब्रेरी आके देखो किताबें खोलती है। किसी के बात पे न आना दुनिया झूलती है, बजने दो बजता तो ढोल भी है। एक राज जो यहाँ पे सदियों से छिपाता, लाइब्रेरी आके देखो किताबें खोलती है। बातों की होती शुरुआत है, छोटा दिमाग तो बड़ा मिजाज है, अपना तो एक ही मिजाज की पढ़ना है और पढ़ते ही जाना ही जोर वाली दुनिया से बड़ा बन के दिखाना है। बड़ा बनने के लिए मुकाम भी तो चाहिए, अपने आप को समझने के लिए TCLP वाला नाम भी तो चाहिए। हाँ, जाने से कभी कुछ नहीं मिलता, मेहनत करोगे तभी मिलेगी सफलता, अच्छे काम करोगे तभी खुश होगी जनता। ना है लीडरशिप तो कोई गांधी नहीं बनता, हाँ बनते ये लोग नेता और करते क्राइम में किताबें बोलती है, यही अपना टैग लाइन है। छोटे से ये कमरे किताबों से भरे हैं, है ये निःशुल्क स्वागत सबका कर रहे हैं, पब्लिक से तो ये काफी बड़ा है। टैलेंट की है ना कमी, क्योंकि यहाँ पे बहुत कला है, कला तो यहाँ जी सभी के पास है, जो हाथों से लिख दिया वो बन जाता इतिहास है, जो भी मैंने बोला वो रहता सबको याद है। आओ मेरे साथ सब बोले, सभी बोलेंगे। किसी के बात पे ना आना, दुनिया झोलती है, बजने दो बजता तो ढोल भी है। एक राज जो यहाँ पे सदियों से छिपाता, लाइब्रेरी आके देखो किताबें बोलती है। किसी के बात पे ना आना, दुनिया झोलती है, बजने दो बजता तो ढोल भी है। एक राज जो यहाँ पे सदियों से छिपाता, लाइब्रेरी आके देखो किताबें बोलती है। किताबें बोलती है, 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 किताबें बोलती है ना।
अरे भाई एक ही घर में बैठे ये बात कर रहे हैं।
Fantastic, I think. Superb. This is the link of the video, and I think you have आपने पूरा sum up कर दिया हमारे initiative को कि किताबें बोलती है, you just have to go and find out for yourself. So this is the perfect way to, I think, give a round to what we were trying to achieve, कि हमने शुरुआत करी कि किताबें के subjects क्या हैं, लिखते कैसे हैं, then we move to okay, फिर पढ़ने के लिए हम कैसे पहुंचाए किताबें चिल्ड्रन तक, उनके पेरेंट्स के थ्रू जाएं, कैसे जाएं, ऑथर और रीडर के बीच में इंटरेक्शन क्रिएट करने का वो प्लेटफॉर्म की बात की। थर्ड वी मूव टू ओके, प्लेटफॉर्म के बाद अब एक्सेस, ग्रास रूट लेवल पे हम कैसे बच्चों तक किताबें पहुंचाते हैं और उसके बाद वो खुद किताबों तक कैसे आते हैं, उसे हम कैसे एनकरेज करें। So we are at the close of our event. I would now open the floor to questions from the audiences. We have 10 minutes. We have run over time, sorry. So 10 minutes we will take questions. And you are most welcome to leave them in the chat box. I think ek Prachi ke liye there was a question from Daregaon House, which you have addressed, Prachi. But if there is something that, if there is a follow-up, you are most welcome to raise your hand. Open your mic and start speaking. So I'll open the floor now to questions for our discussants.
Yeah, this is a question for Prachi. Actually, I'm Bhaval. We are also running a library program. We are in a very remote place called Dharampur in the south of Gujarat. So we deal with tribal kids and we run library for in schools. Okay, just wanting to connect to you probably on for spreading, like how Swati was telling that they are really hungry for books. Actually, wherever you go, you just we go and get books along. Now in few schools we have kept books with our small corner created there, and every time we go, as you said, it's just not enough to keep the books and go ahead. Yeah, we tell story to them, we do different activities around this story. Once in a week we go to one school. So right now we are dealing with we go to 10 schools. We are very small organization, but again, would really, with all our experience of 3 years, I would say. Otherwise, we are connected to community work in education since very long. Libraries are initiative, is I would say. But how to reach out to many more, because this is this is the way to go. I am, homeschooling mother myself, and my child has learned just through books. He has never gone to school, and so stories has been our medium always. He's 15 now, and now he will appear for 10th. Yeah. So believer of, importance of stories, and now spreading it out. Would love to know how to reach widely. Yeah. So I think once I tried to connect, but I could not. So probably let me know what is the way to connect to TCLP.
I'll do this. That I'll share my email ID and also Free Libraries Network's email ID. If you write to me and to the FLN ID, both of us will definitely connect. Purnima is here, who's from FLN, and she will be there to take this conversation forward with you, because I think it will be so much better to have a more detailed separate conversation.
Yes, yeah, sure. Yeah. Thank you.
More comments, thoughts? There is a question from Zoya. Zoya, would you like to ask this, or shall I read it? Yeah.
Sure, I can ask it. So my name is Zoya. I'm part of the community library project. At the libraries, we talk a lot about the kind of literature that we imagine on our shelves, which is literature not only written by a few people, but actually written by everyone, right? So I want to ask the panelists about, according to them, what are the critical gaps in children's literature at the moment, if at all there is a category called children's literature. Because we argue that children's literature is also for everyone. But what are the critical gaps in that kind of genre, according to you, at the moment? And how can we build a more inclusive children's literature? How can we kind of address that gap?
Swati, would you like to take that? You're on mute. You're on mute.
No, I wanted to understand, Zoya, do you experience those gaps? I mean, have you had queries from your participants who have said that they are looking for some stories and they haven't found?
So absolutely. As a librarian, this is something that we experience regularly. In terms of the characters that are represented in children's literature, right? For instance, we talk a lot in the libraries about where are the characters from Dalit Bahujan families in the children's literature, right? Where are transgender people in children's literature, right? So I'd like to understand from you also.
No, so that can't be a question from the child. I think the question is in the adult's mind, because I don't think the children per se kind of say that I'm looking for a Dalit Bahujan. So my point to you is that one is that, we when we are talking to children of different ages, it's always good to give a variety of, stories to them. Because the more I feel that way. I mean, I'm not just talking about Bookaroo per se. I feel that way that if we are going to reinforce, those differences or the kind of what you are saying, then we are probably, making those lines even more firmer. One is that. Two is it isn't so that we don't have those books, Zoya. We may not have many of those books, but for example, you just said about trans or about, books that are dealing with LGBTQI issues. I think there are books of that kind, and we can always talk about it. You could come to our bookshop also. We are in Greater Clash here in GK2 only, but it isn't as if it's not there at all. Yes, there's a lot that needs to be done. and people are working. A lot of, let's say, thought is going behind these issues to be brought forth to children. We've had issues, we have had sessions in Bookaroo as well. So I don't think it's like a blanket statement that where are the characters. I think they are there. It's also about finding those books. It's also about us creating, a kind of an atmosphere or a narrative that will, kind of be able to, satisfy the child's story urge first. I feel that, and then of course, like you say, that there can be much more. I agree with that, but it isn't as if there is none. I mean, I would like to differ on that front.
But I disagree with you on one thing, Swati.
Yeah.
I think children have started speaking up and saying, I want a story on this subject, or I want a story which represents this kind of person.
Okay.
So what I have written about a trans boy came out of a demand from a child. A story that I've written about a Hindu Kashmiri Pandit girl who has been brought up to hate Muslims because her father's been killed in a terrorist attack in Kashmir. And so she's brought up to hate Muslims, and her sort of finding out that there was no need for hate came out of, again, a children's discussion on the subject. Zoya, there are some books, few and far between, and certainly greater access, greater information about those books is very much needed. There's a book by Himanjali Sankar on talking about Muskan. There's a book called Slightly Burnt, which are both on gender issues. There's a very beautiful picture book called Poo, P-U-U. It's a scholastic book about a child of a family who picks up night soil. And she goes to school and she has this smell and everybody makes fun of her, and it's told in pictures. And the smell, poo, is depicted by flowers, because that's also a word for flowers and poo. It's a very moving, very beautiful book. So they are there, but why not get your kids? You work with such amazing children. I've always been with a couple of times. I haven't been enough, but the kind of response that I've got from the Community Library Project kids has been very moving, and I'm sure they would be able to write. I was doing a project at the Sanskriti Kendra where we were getting children from different schools and different kinds of schools to come in over a year for a series of workshops. There was a group of Muslim children from the walled city who came. And when I got them to do writing, they all had Hindu names as their characters. So I said, what about Muslim children? And at that time they had said, can they be in books? But by the end of 4 months, 5 months, they all had written stories, and very good stories about Muslim children with Muslim names.
Thank you so much, Paraj. Can I just quickly add one point to this? That so when I have read aloud with children, I think what you said is very much right. Like it's not an outright question of where are books about caste or where are books about gender. I think it happens when they say, oh, but my experience is different. या फिर मेरे साथ भी ऐसा हुआ है. It's usually the difficulty in naming what they have experienced, because they don't hear a lot of these conversations around to develop a vocabulary that will help them talk about the things they experience on a daily basis, and a lot of them are very cruel things they experience on a daily basis, be it in the classroom, out on the streets. And I think that's the role that books play. And especially if books have representation from different experiences, from different stories and different communities, children get that a space to talk about what they're experiencing and also be able to name what they're experiencing.
Yes.
So yeah, I think that's absolutely essential. Yeah.
I had done a story, I'd done a performance of a ghost story and then a story on domestic violence. And the children asked, as they often ask, is it a true story? And I said, what do you think? And they said, well, the ghost story was definitely not, but the domestic violence one definitely was. So I said, how do you say with so much confidence that that was a true story? And this girl looked at me and said, "Kyunki mere ghar mein bhi yahi hota hai." And then a few other children came in and talked about them being witness to or have knowledge of domestic violence. And then I said, so what do you feel? And a lot of them said they felt angry, they felt whatever. But all of them hung on to one word, which was bebas. They felt so helpless. And so then we talked about and developed a story on what could they do in that situation. But if you were to, if a teacher was to go into a class and say, aapke ghar mein domestic violence hai, none of them would say yes in my house. But because it's within that safety net of a story, and you're talking about a fictional character, they're able to talk about their own experience and connect with that.
I'm going to step in here with something which is a good thing to say sorry about, which is that we've overshot our time because we have been so engrossed in conversations and they have been so insightful and really, really so useful that I'm sorry we cannot take any more questions, but I would request our panelists to share websites, Bookaroo, and TCLP, Free, FLA and others, so that our audience can connect with you. If there is an email like Prachi shared, you're welcome to do that. And everybody has Habitat Programs ID. I will share that again. Please do write to us if you have responses or if there are questions that you would like for us to reach out to our panelists. We will do that. We will write to them. We will get responses and send back to you. That is possible. We do not like to disappoint everyone who's joined us. So questions are still open to be answered, but just not on this panel. Thank you everyone for joining. We had quite like about 50 and more and many participants and diverse people from all age groups joining in, and that was our aim. So very happy that all of you could join in. I hope you found it useful and also interesting. When we started putting this together, there was this Vinod Kumar Shukla poem ka title in my mind, which said "Bana banaya dekha akash, banta kahan dikha akash." So through this panel, we wanted to then find responses to that question: ki acha, how do we put people together who contribute to painting the sky for kids? So we wanted to bring a writer. कैसे किताबें लिख के हम पहुंचाएं बच्चों तक और फिर वो क्या interaction होती है? That was our aim, and I hope that we were able to get somewhere close to it. So thank you everyone. Thank you to our wonderful panelists for your time. Thank you for bringing so much. It was so rich, and we're all a little fuzzy, but we have to end. So thank you everyone, and we hope to see you soon and in person also.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kanika. You did this so well.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kanika.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Prachi. Bye, Paro.
Bye. Bye.